Hi and welcome to The Winning Factor. I'm Alan Aitken, and on this show each week we take a look at some upcoming races in Hong Kong and try to isolate a single ingredient of the race that we might look back on later as having decided the result, or at least been a path to finding the winner. Well, this Sunday, Sha Tin Racing, and the first race that I want to take a look at is race 5, where our winning factor is fitness. Now, I think there'll be fans for quite a few horses here. Ezra down in class, Zach Purton's mount, Jade Fortune switching from the dirt to the turf, consistent Telecom Rocket, Royal Racer has a chance from a low draw, as does the backup horse Circuit number 1. But to me, this is all about what we get from John Si's trained Leap of Faith. And this is his most recent start, and this is why I think the race is all about him. Now, this is race 680. He's in white with blue sleeves. Gets a bit of a bump out of the gates early, but quickly makes his way through into a trail just behind the leaders over 1,400 metres. And you see on the heat map, this was a race with quite a solid above average set of sections home from the 800 metre mark. And as a result, it was not easy for anything to make ground. In fact, the first 4 at the 800 metres were the first 4 at the finish as well, but they came away from the body of the field. So I'm hearing you after watching that video and you're saying, yeah, well, that was fine, he raced well, didn't do anything special though, and there are other horses in this race who have similar looking form on paper. However, there is an aspect of his rivals here that I want to highlight, and that is their fitness. Now, look at this graphic. This is the field for Sunday's race, and in the first column you see how many days each runner had between his run 2 starts ago and his last start, and then how many days between the last start and this start. And the thing that sticks out here, I've highlighted here, is Leap of Faith. 4 months between his 2 previous runs, 126 days, whereas his rivals here had all gone into their last start reasonably fit. So he's the one open to improvement, and when we look at the map, he's up to 1,600 metres here. I think he will occupy a fairly similar sort of a space in the race this time, from an inside gate just behind the leaders, and in a race where there doesn't look to be a heck of a lot of pace, but I think we're going to find him a little bit tougher at the end of the race. So the tip in race 5, Leap of Faith, his winning factor, fitness. Yes, the form looks fairly similar for quite a few horses in this race, but I think he's the one with improvement because he had that big gap between runs. He's a 3-year-old, only lightly raced, and I think that we could see him advance. The second race I want to take a look at for Sunday's meeting is race 10, and a winning factor here, the map. Now, as usual in the Class 2s, this is a pretty good contest, and there are cases to be made for horses like Perfect Match and More Than Lucky, who will both be up on the pace, maybe even for Transcendent, coming back to a kind of barrier draw. But one of our regular winning factors applied to the race really draws the attention to the prospects of Glorious Spectrum, trained by Ricky Yu, and Dan Control from the John Moore yard. And the reason for that is that Yu and Moore have led the way this season with our conversion rate horses. Now, that's horses who have advertised themselves at their previous run with a 2nd, 3rd or 4th placing. And look, we can argue until the cows come home who is the better trainer, wherever you go in racing. But one thing as bettors that we know is that trainers with strong figures around this kind of conversion rate are trainers we can back with a bit of confidence, knowing that their horses run a good race and then follow it up again next time. So that's where you and Moore have led the way this season. And we take a look at the graphics here, and firstly you see the conversion rates for the trainers since the start of the 2014-15 season. Here's our top 10, and John Si's long reign at the top in Hong Kong has really been built on this kind of consistency, this kind of statistic, and the 11-time champion leads the way. His horses run well and turn up and run well again next time. But in this second table, we see what's happened only this current season. Now, there is some water still to go under the bridge in the championship race, but Ricky Yu, highlighted in orange, has built what might be his first championship win on his conversions, and he's even outperformed the betting market as per the expected wins, which is never easy to do. And a special mention to Jimmy Ting also, who's managed that in both his seasons. But meanwhile, John Size has underperformed in this area this term, and it shows in his overall performance. So that factor draws us to those horses from the top conversion rate trainers, and as luck would have it, they met at their latest run where they both established their conversion rate number in a race on May 24, and we're going to take a look at that. And both wearing famous colours, the black and white diagonal stripes on Dan Control, the colours of Dan XL, while Glorious Spectrum in the mostly green and white Hong Kong Mile winning colours of Glorious Days. And Dan Control begins well from a wide gate. Glorious Spectrum, he's in closer to the inside from gate 6. And watch what happens early here. Dan Control jumped well. He had to surrender ground and go back, or be risking a wide trip. And as a result, he concedes several lengths start to Glorious Spectrum by the time we get to the home straight. Now, Glorious Spectrum goes to the lead, looks the winner momentarily, and then goes down in a photo, while Dan Control rattles home for 4th placing. Now, that was Dan Control's first run for a while, and he'll be improved by that. So there probably isn't a great deal between them on the basis of that run. So how do we separate them? And that's where we go to the map, because strangely enough, both horses move out exactly one barrier this time, so that Glorious Spectrum is now in barrier 7, Dan Control in barrier 14. And there's every chance that this race could play out exactly the same way as last time, with Dan Control having to concede ground to get in and get an easier trip rather than be caught wide. And no matter what he does, there is nuisance value in that outside barrier for Dan Control, whereas the map for Glorious Spectrum looks very favourable. So the tip in race 10, Glorious Spectrum. His winning factor, the map. Now, both of these horses would qualify as strong chances just on the conversion rate concept. However, they've both got that. We need to separate them, and I think you see that the way this race will pan out looks much kinder for Glorious Spectrum. Well, that's it from the winning factor for this week. Good luck on Sunday. We'll see you next time.